1,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, we join the story on the distant planet of Dagobah. The swamp's oppressive air clung to Seyvet Jiracus like a second skin, the stench of decay mingling with the damp fog. Her boots sank into the fetid muck as she pressed forward, her Jedi robes in tatters and her lightsaber clutched tightly in her trembling hand. Dagobah's wild, untamed presence weighed heavy on her mind, its overwhelming aura of the Force unlike anything she had ever encountered. Seyvet was alone now. Her team, her comrades, her friends, each had been hunted down, one, by the relentless Darth Cognis. The Dark Lord's prowess in battle was unparalleled, but it was her cunning that truly terrified Seyvet. Cognis had not just killed. She had dismantled Seyvet's will to fight, leaving her haunted by their screams, their faces frozen in fear and pain. The sound of the Sith Lord's footsteps, distant yet deliberate, reached her ears. Seyvet's heart raced. She had no plan, no hope of victory. Only survival mattered now, though even that seemed fleeting. As she stumbled through the swamp, she found herself before a dark opening, a yawning maw of twisted roots and shadows. The air within was colder, heavier, and thrummed with a sinister energy. The Cave of Evil. She had heard whispers of such places, nexuses of the dark side where reality bent to one's deepest fears. Her breath hitched. Behind her, the faint hum of Cognis's lightsaber pierced the silence, closer now. There was no choice. Seyvet stepped into the cave. The darkness consumed her instantly, her surroundings melting into an abyss of swirling shadows. Her senses betrayed her, and suddenly, she was no longer on Dagobah but in the Jedi Temple. The council chamber loomed before her, the masters seated in judgment. "You failed them, Seyvet," Master Atric spoke, his voice cold and accusing. "You led them to their deaths." "No, Seyvet's voice cracked as she tried to defend herself. "I didn't know." "You were weak," another voice snarled. She turned to see her own reflection, but this version of herself was cloaked in black, her eyes glowing a fiery yellow. "You let them die because you were afraid of what you could become." The dark mirror ignited a crimson blade. "You're not a Jedi. You're a coward." A fraud. Seyvet raised her own lightsaber, but her hands trembled as she ignited the blue blade. The reflection lunged, and their sabers clashed. Sparks flew, and the room melted away, replaced by the swamp once more. Seyvet stood alone, her breath ragged. In her hand, her blade now burned crimson. Emerging from the cave, Seyvet felt different. The fear and doubt that had plagued her for so long were gone, replaced by a cold, unshakable clarity. The darkness within her no longer frightened her. It empowered her. She had faced her fears, and in doing so, she had embraced them. The sound of footsteps broke her reverie. Darth Cognis emerged from the shadows, her lightsaber inactive but her presence suffocating. Her head tilted slightly as she regarded Seyvet. "I wondered if the cave would break you," Cognis said, her voice as smooth as silk and laced with amusement. "But I see now it has done something far more interesting." Seyvet turned to face the Sith, her crimson blade snapping to life. Her grip was steady, her eyes cold. "You came here to destroy me, but I am not the same Jedi you hunted." Cognis smiled, a sly, knowing expression. "No, you are not. You and I are not so dissimilar, I see." She took a step closer, her tone dripping with satisfaction. "It seems I have found another member for my ranks." For a moment, Seyvet hesitated. Her identity as a Jedi tugged at her, a distant echo, but it was drowned out by the intoxicating pull of the dark side. The galaxy had no place for weakness, and the Jedi, they had failed her. With a resolute nod, Seyvet deactivated her saber and knelt before Darth Cognis. The Sith Lord's laughter rang through the swamp, a triumphant melody to herald the birth of her new apprentice. Seyvet Jiracus was no more. In her place stood something far darker, a shadow cast by the failure of the Jedi Order and the triumph of the Sith.